Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And here I want to talk about the psychodynamic and behavioral approaches. A psychodynamic approach, the idea that people's aggressiveness might stem from an interested instinct, was taken in a different direction by a finance physician, Sigmund Freud, who began to work about 15 years after the founding of Wundt's laboratory. Freud Freud at first assumed that normal and abnormal behavior and mental process have a physical cause somewhere in the nervous system, but Freud's work with people whose physical ailments had no apparent physical cause led him to create a new theory and from a treatment called psychoanalysis. His ideas are the foundation of the psychodynamic approach, which holds that all behavior and mental process reflect constant and mostly unconscious struggle within each person. Usually, the struggle involves a conflict between the impulse to satisfy instinct or wishes for food, sex, or aggressions, for example, and the restriction imposed by society. From the perspective, display of violence or hostility or even anxiety reflects the breakdown of civilian defense against the expression of primitive urge. The psychodynamic approach is far less influential in psychology today than in the past, and most of its adherents prefer a revised version of Freud's original theory. Still, Freud in are critical to an understanding of contemporary views of personality, psychological disorder, and treatment. Sigmund Freud established the psychodynamic approach to human behavior and mental process. In particular, he emphasizes the role in instinct as component of constant unconscious conflict in the creation and alteration of human personality. In 1913, while Freud was pursuing his psychodynamic approach and gaining favor among American psychologists, a Harvard psychology professor named John B. Watson published a book called "Psychology as a Behaviorist Views It". In it, Watson urged psychologists to ignore mental events, conscious as well as unconscious, and study instead only what they could observe directly by focusing on observable or overt action, said Watson. Psychology would not have to rely to people's potentially distorted report about themselves. He also argued that environmental influence, the things that happen after birth, are paramount in shaping who people are and what they do. Watson's views gave rise to the behavioral approach to psychology, which emphasizes the idea that behavioral and mental processes are primarily the result of learning. From this perspective, biological, genetic, and evolutionary factors provide the raw material on which rewards, punishment, or other experience act, molding each person. Thus, behaviorists examine person's learning history, the pattern of reward and punishment, to explain aggressive, dependent, or confident behavior. They assert that people can change problematic behavior such as violence by unlearning old habits and developing new ones. For example, research using this approach have created program to reduce antisocial behavior in children and To teach violent criminals the social skills they need to interact with other people. Another Harvard psychologist, B. F. Skinner, spent decades perfecting methods for the functional analysis of behavior, mapping out the detail of how rewards and punishments shape, maintain, and change behavior. His work helped explain, for example, for children unruly behavior or something inadvertently uh, encouraged by the intention it attract from parents and teachers, and how some people's virtual addiction to gambling can result from the social and unpredictable reward it brings. Skinner's contribution helped behavior maintain in 1950 and 1960 the dominant position in psychological research it had enjoyed in the United States since the 19 and 20. For some psychologists, however, behaviorism near exclusive focus on overaction made it incomplete. They argue that we can never fully understand the nature of feelings or altruism for any older behavior for that matter without learning something about the thought that accompany them. Since the 19 and 70, many behaviorists have come to endorse a cognitive behavioral view, which adds the study or reportable mental process to the traditional behavioral emphasis on overt behavior. Thus, the cognitive behavioral approach explores how learning affects the development of thought and belief, and how in turn these learned cognitive patterns affect our behavior. B. F. Skinner was the most notable contemporary champion of behavioral approach to psychology in spite of his reputation of being interested only in overt behaviors. Skinner recognized that mental events took place and could be important, but argued that they could not be studied directly.